Igbo land is not landlocked. We have the deepest access to the ocean. Since the Biafran War of Survival, Igbo has been hit with a barrage of lies concerning the access of Igbo land to the ocean. In a condescending but rather popular phrase, our detractor says, the southeast is landlocked. Name, but is any Igbo landlocked like this generation has been made to believe and sometimes profess? The answer is no, and in this article will sufficiently put all the lies and propaganda to rest. To start with, we must first define what a landlocked country is. A country is considered landlocked when it is surrounded by one or more countries and therefore has no immediate coastline providing access to the ocean. This simply put means that a landlocked country is a country without access to a sea, ocean, a country that is inside another country or countries. That being established, I will go ahead to mention and discuss the major ancient Igbo regions and people, showcasing the reach of the Igbo race. Irrespective of the new tyrannical geographic displacement of Igbo land by the Nigerian government, this will help us grasp the vastness of the Igbo landscape without viewing Ala Igbo in the light of the recently created 5 southeastern states. Igbo can be divided into 5 geographically based subcultures. We have the Northern Igbo, the Southern Igbo, the Western Igbo, the Eastern Igbo, and the Northeastern Igbo. Each of these 5 can be further divided into subgroups based on specific locations and names. The Northern Onitsha Igbo are divided into Inri Oka of Onitsha and Oka, the Enugu of Nsukka, Udi, Agu, and Okigwe, and those of the Onitsha town. The Southern or Owerri Igbo are divided into the Isu Ama of Okigwe, Olu, and Owerri, the Orata Ikweri of Owerri and Ahuada, the Ohuhu Ngwa of Aba and Bende, and the Isu item of Bende and Okigwe. The Western Igbo, the Indi Anyama as they like to call themselves, are divided into the Northern Ika of Ogwasho Uku and Agbo, the Southern Ika of Kwale and the riverine of Ogwasho Uku, Onitsha, Owerri, and Ahuada. The Eastern or Cross River Igbo are divided into the Ada or Eda of Afikpo, the Abam or Hafia of Bende and Okigwe, and the Aro of Aro. The Northeastern Igbo include the Ogo Uku of Abakaliki and Afikpo. It is important to note that Indi Igbo is located on both sides of the river Niger and occupies most of old eastern Nigeria. Indi Igbo measures over 41,000 square kilometers and includes the old provinces of Onitsha, Owerri, East Rivers, Southeast Benin, West Ogoja, and Northeast Warri. Now that we have enunciated the far reaches of Ani Igbo, let us get into geography to further provide proof that Ani Igbo is not landlocked. Ala Igbo is not landlocked, the rivers that empty into the oceans. Ani Igbo have several navigable rivers that empty into the ocean, and the 4 most important ones are through Onitsha, all the way down to the Niger Delta and into the Atlantic Ocean, through Igwe Ocha, Port Harcourt, which is Igbo land, through Obehi in Abia State, which empties into the Atlantic Ocean, through Oguta in Imo State that empties into the Atlantic Ocean. If our people take geography seriously and publish it as it is on the ground, we will all see that Abia, Imo, and Anambra have varying short distance tributaries paths to the Atlantic Ocean through Azimini, Imo, and Niger rivers. There are also many unexplored waterways and tributaries which honestly are difficult to traverse on foot because of the swamp snakes and the many hidden dangers found in such uncharted regions. Some of those waterways are the Oguta Lake in Imo State and the Ose Aqua River in Ihiala, Anambra State, which meander through the Igbo Delta wetlands to the southeastern ends of the Atlantic Ocean. These rivers, mentioned above, have short navigational paths to the Atlantic Ocean and geographically have far shorter nautical distances than the Calabar, Port Harcourt, and Ibaka seaports to the same ocean. The Azumini in Abia State and the Imo rivers from their outer reaches are about 15 to 30 nautical miles to the beachhead, keeping in mind that 1 nautical mile is 1.8 kilometers. This means that the waters in the current southeastern region have fewer nautical miles and are closer to the Atlantic Ocean than the seaports in Onne, Calabar, Ibaka, Lagos, and Port Harcourt, respectively. So how did Igbo lose their other lands with access to the ocean? There is no lie in saying that Igbo have been watered down over the decades to the point where we are less conscious of our heritage. We are now a people without an original and solid grasp of our land, cultures, and authority over our territories. It has gotten so bad that when we hear Igbo land is landlocked, we summarily believe the statement. Why? Because we don't know the far reaches of our lands. Some of the major contributors to this phenomenon were the 1966 to 1970 Biafra Nigerian War, which led to the infamous abandoned property policy and the vindictive adjustment of boundaries supported by a heightened Igbophobia from all corners of the south and north of Nigeria. Like our ancestors would say, Ochunwa, Okuko Nweada, Nwa Okuko Nwere Nwenwe Oso. I hope I got that. An Igbo has legal access and ancestral rights to the Atlantic. Umunne, when our detractors tell you that we do not have access, remind them of the facts we have stated above, and to solidify our case in the defense of An Igbo, we must also let you know that the international law makes it legally binding for An Igbo to have access to the nearest ocean sea, whether we remain in Nigeria territory or Biafra. So what is the international law of the sea? According to the Ocean Service, the law of the sea is a body of custom, treaties, and international agreements by which governments maintain order, productivity, and peaceful relations on the sea. NOAA's nautical charts provide the baseline that marks the inner limit of the territorial sea and the outer limit of internal waters. This law gives, as I have mentioned above, gives Igbo unhindered access to the nearest ocean sea, which is, in this case, is the Atlantic Ocean. In this article on The Guardian, our renowned legal luminary concluded thus: for the avoidance of doubt, there is particularly the Obuaku confluence in Ukwa West, Abia State, that flows through Ikot-Abasi in Akwa Ibom State before expanding out and washing into the near reaches of the Atlantic, and the River Niger, which ultimately joined the Atlantic through a vast network of hardly explored creeks and mangrove swamp that abuts the bight of Bonny in the south-south. Wow. It is well, all this shalaye. Only better, other peaceful and national coexistence, the inland areas can have access to the sea. Okay. Say, praise God says they know. Propaganda everywhere. The Igbos are the greatest, highest, largest, and the biggest. They know. Alright, my listeners, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. Thank you for listening. See you some other time. Bye.